Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sake Revolution. I have a slightly different emphasis on my syllables today. This is America's very first sake podcast, and I am your host, John Puma. You may know me from the Sake Notes. You may also know me as the guy who started the Internet Sake Discord. On this show, I'm the guy who's not the Sake Samurai. That's the other guy.
And I'm your host, Timothy Sullivan. I'm a sake samurai, I'm a sake educator, as well as the founder of the Urban Sake website. And every week, John and I will be here tasting and chatting about all things sake, doing our best to make it fun and easy to understand.
Hello, Tim. Welcome back.
Hey, John. It's a new year. New year, new you.
New year, same me so far. We'll see how it progresses. But, we're only a couple of days into this new year. But before we proceed any further, there is some business that we need to attend to.
Yes.
At the end of our previous episode, we promised our intrepid listeners that we were going to have our Sake Revolution resolutions for 2023 in our hip pocket today when we started this episode. So you've had a week to think about it, Tim.
Yes.
What is your resolution for 2023?
Well, my sake resolution is simple, straightforward, and achievable.
Okay. These are all pluses. I like this.
Yes. I have not been to Japan since 2019. So my goal is to get my butt over to Nihon and enjoy some time in Japan before the end of 2023, come hell or high water. What do you think of that?
I think it's very doable.
All right.
Having done it,
Yes.
having done it already, I'm going to tell you, it's not that hard. Now it isn't. It went from impossible to remarkably easy like that. So
Don't you wish you had that as your resolution last year?
I mean, I can. I mean, if I had it last year, it would have been great. It would have been prophetic. Even. Last year, I didn't want to jinx it.
Right.
So
Good thinking.
Yeah, I kept my mouth shut. Have you booked yet?
No, I haven't booked yet.
Okay, all right. But when you go, I'm really excited. We'll do another Live from Japan episode with the roles reversed.
That will be a Freaky Friday episode I'm going to look forward to.
Fantastic.
And what about you?
Oh, me.
Yes.
Yes. I talk on this show a lot when we taste our sake, and we sometimes we dabble in how would you pair this? And
Yes.
I am often at a loss. I do not think about pairing when I'm drinking sake. Generally speaking, I focus really on the sake. I never think about how the food's going to really work with it too much. So my goal for 2023 is to focus on pairings and to make sure that I have different foods with my sake. Maybe take notes. That didn't go great last year. But just try to keep track and try to be more cognizant of what kind of food I'm having with my sake and what kind of sake I'm having with my food, and maybe make a few more connections so that I can be a little more helpful during those parts of the show.
That's a great resolution. And, I think it really just ties into paying attention when you eat and pair sake with food. What works, what doesn't work, what really clicks with you, and just being a little present when you're pairing food and sake, that makes a huge difference. And I think it's going to be fun in a year from now to check in and see what you've discovered in relation to food and sake pairing. All
right. I like the way you put that. I to pay attention when I eat. That'll be a new thing I'll try. Pay attention when I eat. Yes. No, I'm really excited about that and about trying to just be better about that. I think it's a blind spot for me. I think it's something I want to address.
Awesome. Okay.
It's not as easy as going to Japan or anything like that. But I think we're going to have a lot of fun on both of our respective resolutions.
So, now that is all buttoned up and we are ready to face 2023 head on, let's dive into our first full episode of the new year. We're going to be adding another episode to our Wild Rice series. So this is a series that we've done I can say it now, over the years of Sake Revolution.
I feel like it's been a while since we've done a wild rice episode.
Yeah. Longtime listeners will know that we have a series called Wild Rice where we taste sakes that come from a given rice strain, and we explore the background of that rice, and we taste a sake from that's made from that. And we're going to get back into that today, but something a little bit unique. This may be borderline extreme.
Wait a second. Okay, so borderline extreme wild rice. So this is going to be some funky rice, huh?
Yes, the type of rice we're going to be talking about today is known in Japanese by a few different names. The first one is akamai. Akamai. Aka means red, and mai means rice. So this is red rice. Have you ever heard of that before, or you know about red rice?
I have heard of red rice, and I have seen sakes that utilize red rice. I don't think I've ever had a sake that uses red rice, though.
Yeah, so red rice is literally a wild rice. So we could say the whole series was named after this type of rice.
I don't know if that's brilliant or a cop-out, but I like it.
Yes. So wild rice is often called kodai mai, or ancient rice.
Okay.
So this is rice that has not been crossbred with other varieties of rice. So many types of premium sake rice are cultivated and crossbred and have a parent and a grandparent, and they selectively breed rice for different characteristics that are important. But this type of akamai or kodai mai is really ancient strains of wild rice. And if you're familiar with wild rice in the US, it tends to be black and very thin-grained, and sometimes you mix it in with regular white rice to make like a peel-off or something like that. Have you had that before, like the type of wild rice?
It's actually one of my favorite things to have. It's mixing some wild rice in with pilaf or something like that is delicious.
Yeah, well, we looked into a little bit of what makes these wild rice or red rice, what makes it special. And it turns out that the akamai has tannins in it.
Tannins?
Tannins, yes.
In sake rice?
Well, this isn't sake rice per se. This is not usually used for making sake. But the presence of tannins in wild rice allows brewers who choose to work with these types of grains to get an outcome that looks like a rosé. It's really interesting. When the tannins are exposed to light over time, they give off this natural pinky red color. And it allows brewers to create these sakes that have a very, very distinct hue to them. And it's something that not a lot of brewers do. But we're going to be exploring some sakes today that use this so-called akamai, or wild rice, red rice. And it's the tannins that are in the rice that allows them to get that color. Really interesting.
All right. This will be educational.
Yeah, so this is not the type of rice that's going to have a shimpaku or a starchy core. This is not considered shuzo kotekimai, which is the fancy word for premium sake rice. This is literally wild rice that if you look at it as a whole grain, it looks blackish or sometimes almost purplish in color. And it's really unique and not something you're going to see every brewery using.
So is this a rice that you would normally, this specific rice, is this a rice that you would normally eat?
It is a rice that is grown kind of like a heritage grain, like it's an ancient grain, and it's used in all kinds of things. I think a lot of health food applications use these wild grains in Japan, so you can eat it. As I mentioned before, it's not something that's usually used for sake, except a few exceptions.
All right. I definitely am starting to see where that extreme might be peeking its head in on this episode.
Yes. And I think the main characteristic you're going to notice from sakes that use Akamai or red rice is the color. Like that's going to jump out at you first and foremost.
It's a dead giveaway.
It is a dead giveaway.
Yeah.
Now we're going to focus in on a particular brewery and a particular sake today. This brewery has such an interesting story. I really wanted to share with you, John, some of the research I did. The brewery we're looking at today is called Mukai Shuzo.
Mukai Shuzo. All right. And where are they located?
They're in Kyoto Prefecture. Mm-hmm. And when people hear Kyoto, they often think of the city of Kyoto. But they are in a seaside town called Ine.
Ine.
Ine. And it is a small town on the Bay of Ine, which is right next to the Sea of Japan. So this is in northern Kyoto Prefecture. And it's pretty much right on the water, right on the ocean. The town is like a cultural heritage site because they have boat houses that line the coastline. So people over the years built their houses right on the water. And the first floor was like a boat house where you could like ride your boat right into your house. And then the second floor is like where you live. They have 230 of these boat houses lining the bay. And looking at pictures of this town, it's really, really beautiful. And Mukai Shuzo is in this town, and it is listed as the closest brewery to the sea of any brewery in Japan. So it's like right on the water.
That's great.
Yeah, and they have a floating dock outside of their brewery. And in the summer, they take guests out to the dock, and you sit on these wooden benches, and it's like rocking a little bit, and they serve you the sake, and you do your tasting out on this floating dock on the water. It's really beautiful and interesting.
All right. That sounds pretty cool.
The story gets even more interesting, though, because the Toji is a woman named Kuniko Mukai. And this brewery was founded in 1754.
1754.
1754.
That tracks.
Yeah. And she was the daughter of the president and thought for most of her time growing up that she was going to be the next generation president because she did not have a brother. Okay. So the father said to her, I'm only going to pay for your college if you go to agricultural sake school. And that's a legit university that a lot of sake brewers, next generations, go to. So she tried to apply for the army, the self-defense forces, but she got rejected from the army. So she took her father up on the offer, even though she had no interest in running a sake brewery. And she went to agricultural school to study sake. And she met some wonderful professors there. And one thing that they did was they introduced her to red rice. The professors at her school thought that, you know, shochu was overtaking sake as far as what people were drinking. And her professors taught her that they need something eye-catching, something that people will notice so that sake can make an impression again. And so she always carried this idea of red rice sake in the back of her head. And get this, she was 23 years old when, this is 1998, she was appointed Toji by her father. One of the first female Tojis in Japan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. It's another one of those stories. The younger person comes in, goes to school, gets new ideas. They show up and try to change the world. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. But this is where conflict comes into the story.
Conflict.
Yeah. She joined the brewery as the Toji at age 23 and as a woman. And the brewers that were working there were all 60, 70 years old. And they were not happy with, they knew her whole life. Like she grew up in the brewery. She knew all these men who were working in the brewery. But to suddenly have her with no experience be their boss created a lot of conflict. And she said in interviews that this period of her life was really difficult and challenging, but she needed to go through it in order to learn how to really be a toji, which is a lot about managing people and making sure people are taken care of and have the right working conditions. And she said in so many interviews I read with her that harmony between the workers is needed to make good sake. So she looks back on this time really as a trial by fire. And over the years, she started implementing ways of working together with her team and created that harmony that she was after. And guess what? While all this was going on, her father and mother had a son.
Yeah, but he was like 2.
I mean, it was a few years after she was expecting it, but the son was born, and now he's the president, and she is the toji. So it's a brother-sister team that run Mukai Shuzo. So
she's still the toji, and he got to rise up and become the Kuromoto?
Yeah, I think when she was like 12 or something like that, her younger brother was born, and they weren't sure what was going to happen, but she ended up falling in love with being a toji and doing the brewing, and the brother came back after her father retired, and her brother took over like the administrative type of work. And she, because she had the training at the agriculture school to brew sake, she kept going with being the toji. And one thing that happened in her role as toji is she thought back to her professor who inspired her so much at agriculture school. And her town grows a strain of red rice. So she decided to use her local red rice and try to make a successful sake using this very unique ingredient. The red rice that they grow in the town of Ine is called Murasaki Komachi. Murasaki Komachi. So that's the red rice that they grow there. And that's what sent her on this journey of making the sake we're going to taste today.
Oh, that's an interesting tale.
Yeah,
I like when there's a good story with these breweries and some fun things that we get. Nice.
Yeah, I saw a few interviews with her. She is very enthusiastic about sake. She has a super bright personality, and she is not going to settle for normal run-of-the-mill sake. Although they make really good classic sake too. They're known in Japan. This sake we're going to taste is their signature sake, the one made with the red rice.
All right.
Do you want to introduce us to the sake we'll be tasting today?
That sounds good to me. So, this Ine Mankai Junmai Genshu. Now, you may immediately think Genshu, it's going to be a lot of alcohol. But remember, Genshu just means it's not water diluted. But that does not necessarily mean a lot of alcohol. It just means no water added. And in this case, the alcohol percentage is only 14%. It's very interesting. And so much like the rice pilaf you mentioned earlier, this one is, of course, using more than one rice. You've got your Kyono Kagayaki milled down to 70%. And then that Murasaki Komachi, the red rice, Akamai, milled down to 92%, Tim. And it's like, well, I guess they had to mill something. And to mill a little bit. The SMV on this one is -5. That's that measure of dry to sweet. So pretty sweet until we see the acidity of 2.3. Probably offsetting that sweetness quite a bit. This is going to be funky, Tim. This is going to be extreme. Based on these numbers, my prediction is funky extreme sake.
This is a crossover episode with the extreme sake.
It might be, yes. Without further ado, let's put some aka in our glass.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and pour this Ine Mankai sake.
Oh dear. It is quite red.
Have you ever seen a sake this color before?
Nope.
Yeah, this is unique.
I've seen other red or pink sakes before, but none of them have this exact hue.
Right.
And also, most of the other ones I've had that had that color, it came from the yeast.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point, John. Yeah. There's different ways to make red or rosé colored sake. using the ancient strains of wild rice that have the tannins in them as one, but there's some strains of yeast that can give off certain components that are going to give that blush of pink to the sake as well. Those always seemed a little bit lighter to me. This has a more intense coloration in my book.
Definitely. It's a big color.
All right. Well, now let's give it a smell. You ready for this? This is not John's style of sake.
Extreme.
It's extreme. It's okay. I'm going to be honest with you. This smells like some things that I know you don't like.
You know me so well.
I get a little bit of a cheesy note on the aroma.
Yeah, definitely.
It smells, there's some cheese aroma.
And the cheese alarm is going off in John's mind.
Yes. And there's also a briny aroma as well that smells like olives to me, which I know you also do not like.
We're doing
two
great.
For two.
2 for 2. But, not every sake needs to be for me. There's sake for everybody.
Yes. But there are some, there's some of that creamy, cheesy aroma, but there's also some fruitiness, maybe a little bit of cherry or something like that in the background.
Yeah, there is something tart.
Something tart,
there.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
There's something tart, there's something cherry. I just have to work through the cheese to get there.
Yes. With a machete, you have to fight your way.
Yes.
All right. Well, this is a very complex aroma, very funky.
Oh, quite.
Yes. All right. This may not be in your wheelhouse, Puma, but we're going to soldier on.
We are.
Yes. All right. Let's give it a taste. Oh, wow. The flavor is not cheesy at all.
No.
The flavor is, it tastes like cherry soda to me.
The cherry really comes through more
through.
on the taste than it does on the nose.
Yeah. It's like a cherry seltzer that's gone flat. That's what it tastes like to me.
Almost like a cocktail that's using a flat cherry. This is really a lot lighter in flavor than I was expecting.
Yes.
With that aroma, I was expecting
Oh my gosh.
Just a heavyweight, left hook coming at me. This is much lighter. And light is the right word, I think.
Yeah, it's
Very
not
nice.
It's not too heavy, but the aroma is definitely more funky. It has a cherry note, and there's also umami there. There's a savoriness
There is.
along with that. There's a depth of flavor here.
And it's weird. Like you can just sip on it and have it be light and tasty and done. But if you linger on it, you're going to get all that depth. You're going to be treated. You're going to have a little bonus.
Yeah. Really interesting, unique sake. But this is a popular sake in Japan. And right now, I read online that for Mukai Shuzo, this production of this one sake, this red rice sake, makes up half of her production.
Ooh.
So half of what she makes is this sake. So this is a huge part of their brand identity now. And I think a lot of people might view this as a standard bearer for these types of rosé sakes made from red rice. Like she's figured out the way to get that color and create a really unique depth of flavor.
I understand that. And this is definitely a unique sake. And I don't mean that in a diminutive kind of way. I mean that as a compliment. It's so interesting and it is so unexpected, especially after the aroma. I hate to keep harking on that aroma, but when I smell cheese, I get nervous.
Yeah.
It is this weird combination of being like, it is light, much lighter than you expect it to be. It has depth, much more depth than you think when you taste how light it is. But there's also like almost like a syrupy quality
Yes.
to it as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And I think that comes from the tartness that we had in the aroma.
Yes.
It's almost like a cherry syrup into if you're making an old style soft drink that had like cherry syrup in it and you put a little too much and maybe not enough seltzer like that. It's got that going on. It's got honestly, this has like a lot of cocktail characteristics to it.
Yeah. I mean, this would be an interesting sake to use as a cocktail base for sure. That's a great point.
I think if you put a little bit of seltzer in this, you're going to blow somebody's mind. Honestly, just a little, as a splash of seltzer with this, you get a little bit of bubbles.
And a squeeze of lime.
I'm going to try this later. I'm going to see if it works. We've got seltzer in the house. We're going to see if this is, if my theory holds up.
I have read that the exact method that they use for extracting and preserving the color is a guarded secret. So, yeah. So we don't know. We don't know exactly how they extract the tannins and how they work with the rice. We do know that it's polished down to 92% remaining. So they're just removing the very, very outside of the hull, and that maximizes the amount of tannins that are going to be left in that rice. And they probably need that. And as you said before, the Kyo no Kagayaki, that's also a Kyoto rice. That's that's going to give us a white rice base, and that's 70%. So there's a balance between mixing the heirloom red rice with a more traditional sake rice. And I think you definitely would need that to create something more palatable with a little more balance to it.
Nice. What are we thinking for pairing with this sake? This is a weird sake. It's a very unusual, funky, fun sake. What do you think here? I'm going to take notes.
Okay. Well, my feeling is that if you had like a black cherry or dark cherry dessert, like a tart with cherries in it, that would be great with this. I'm leaning, like my inclination is a little bit towards dessert because I'm getting such like cherry pomegranate notes on this, a little bit more of those tart flavors. I think that a dessert with sweetness, but touching upon those flavor notes would be really, really great. And I would also pair this with cheese. I know that's not your wheelhouse, JP, but I was picking up on distinct, funky, cheesy notes on the aroma. And I think
so not like a hard cheese, but like a funky cheese. You're having like some blue cheese with this? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think blue cheese would be great. I think hard cheeses would also be good, like a Gouda or something like that. This type of sweeter but rich, I enjoy cheeses. And if you had a little dark cherry chutney on the side and you dabbled that on a cheese and ate it, I think that would be amazing. And this is similar to that, where you take something sweet and pair that with a salty lactic cheese, and you get that flavor combination that's so good. So people pair sweet things and cheese all the time, and this is just another variation of that. So I think dessert's one way to go, and I think a cheese platter is another really great way to go.
Fascinating. All right.
You taking notes?
I am typing very quietly. Very nice. Apart from the cheese, I'm excited to see what I can do with this. I'm more the dessert. I think I was to see the avenue I take with this. I'll be pairing it with a dessert. I do think that with the sweetness and the high acidity, you can get some nice dessert sake out of this.
Yeah, and your idea to do the cocktail, genius. Like that is amazing. That's
happening.
That has all the body and structure you need for a cocktail base. One of the shortcomings of sake and cocktails is that it tends to be a little quiet and fall in the background, but this puppy is going to give you color. It's going to give you body. It's going to give you sweetness. So this is a sake that I think would be a real star of the show when it comes to cocktails. So that was a really inspired idea.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Maybe that should have been my resolution. My cocktail
More sake cocktails. You have time to change your resolution.
No. I'm sticking to the pairing. All
right.
So, Tim, this has been quite an educational start for the year.
Yes.
I'm excited. This has been a lot of fun. I hope this is a sign of things to come for the new year. Big, fun, interesting episodes. Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, and we'll have to commit to doing a few more rice episodes in the new year. I really like revisiting this topic. And yeah, it was great to taste with you. Really fun sake to explore, something unique. And I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. And a special hello and thank you to all of our patrons. We are a listener-supported show. And if you would like to support Sake Revolution, one of the best ways to help us out is to join our Patreon. To learn more, visit patreon.com/sakerevolution.
And did you know that at sakerevolution.com, in addition to our show notes and all that other fun stuff, we've also got a link to our shop where you can find interesting swag like t-shirts and stickers. The holidays may have passed, but there's still some gifts that you may need to get for the last minute person that got you a gift and that you didn't get them a gift and like, oh my God, what am I going to do? They love sake Revolution shirt. There you go.
And if you would like to learn more about this episode, please visit our show notes. We have a full description of each and every episode, great transcription as well.
So please raise your glass. Remember to keep drinking sake and kampai.